is guiding everything, the mind, the body, etc. Bodhi Yoga. Then obstacle is attachment to the fruits of our work, so there's Karma Yoga. Karma, you all have heard the word karma. It means work and the reaction to work, good and bad and mixed. So Karma Yoga is a teaching, this is now we're in chapter 3, Bhagavad Gita. How to work without attachment to the results of your work. And that was one of the references that I asked you to look up. Karma eva dekaraste ma means not, ma paleshu, without being attached to the results of your work. Karma Yoga. And then as that becomes more refined, another rung on the yoga ladder is Jnana Yoga, yoga of knowledge. Then another rung, yoga of meditation. Then another rung, yoga of bhakti. And it's described, that's the first 6 chapters, mini outline. And of all the systems of yoga, one is the topmost, and that is identified as Bhakti Yoga. So a verse that I'd like to refer you to is 7.1 Bhagavad Gita. 7.1 Bhagavad Gita is a description of how to perform Bhakti Yoga. And it has 2 parts, what the mind does and what the body does, keeping it simple. And then that's the principle, and then there's the how is that principle fulfilled. The rest of the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita are giving the plus minus on how that's done. So there was a discussion yesterday, for those of you that weren't with us yesterday. She asked a question that it got me thinking a bunch, and that is, I'm accustomed to living a life in this world, and now I'm contemplating a life that's more spiritual, and there must be some yardsticks or boundaries or parameters that I should be looking towards to make my life more spiritual and a little less on the involved in matter, attached to matter side of things. So I gave one verse that was chapter 3, text 27, I think it is. And another one is what I just mentioned, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 1. For those of you that don't have Bhagavad Gita, we'll give you a copy, no problem. And I added some additional references that are on the screen here, so those of you that like to take notes can take some notes. Specifically, the word equanimity is used multiple times. Equanimity means, in one sense, being equal to all things. So there's diversity out there, and you can see the diversity that's out there, but you're equally disposed towards this and that and the other. But it has to do with a spiritual perspective on diversity, or unity in diversity. That's how the English goes. So what's that unity? That's this equanimity. It's this spiritual vision of seeing and moving through. We had this discussion. One person was asking, like this specifically, that we're surrounded by stuff, and we're trying to move towards a spiritual direction. How do you not become contaminated by the stuff and stay, spiritual in the midst of stuff that's not at all spiritual? How do you navigate that? Nice discussion. So one of them, you can't hear?
Thank you.
It's not my problem. Oh boy, the microphone stand is going on strike. Go ahead, fix it. No, it's got a sag. I'll try again. Better? Okay, better is better. What's on the screen here is, there are multiple verses where the word equanimity, and this is a parameter, a way to evaluate how am I doing and a direction to move in, both. Equanimity meaning being equal towards diversity. You can see diversity and maintaining an internal disposition towards that diversity. Because the world that we live in, well, commonly it's described as a place of duality, just like night and day, or happy and sad, or pleasure and pain, or winter and summer season. It's the place where there's opposites, yin and yang, the place of opposites. And being equal, it requires a higher consciousness within. And when one has achieved that higher consciousness within, one is discerning differences, but is equal in disposition towards these differences. That's a spiritual parameter. And the verses that you see on the screen are verses where the word equanimity is directly in the verse. So it's an important characteristic of mindfulness, where you're focused. On the one hand, you're discerning differences. On the other hand, your consciousness remains steady and unwavering, even in the midst of differences. That's a spiritual parameter or spiritual consequence. Here's a little outline of what we did yesterday, facing the enemy, the unbridled mind. Mind is not controlled, and then how to make the mind your friend instead of the enemy. And now we're going to go to the third one, mindfulness on steroids. Nice term, on steroids, a transformed heart. There's the mind on steroids. Where the place where there's spiritual shelter. A nice metaphor is used, or example is used, of sending an airplane or a rocket ship or something up. And yesterday I gave a description of my little journey with spirituality, starting with you up, there's no shelter. But then the next morning, so you need shelter. Place that you stay because there's shelter, and it's in the realm that's of base consciousness, or animal consciousness, or body consciousness, or survival consciousness of real shelter. Then you can stay up, and further and further. Now there's a natural phenomena is, especially in the preliminary stages of anything, certainly yoga practice, is unsteadiness. There was a little discussion on that yesterday also. Sometimes, just like a cipher. Sometimes it's more enthusiastic, sometimes they're more casual, sometimes. But if it's something like yoga or anything that requires discipline, so an athlete or anything that requires discipline, practice in piano or anything that requires discipline, you do it every day. And the teacher do it every day. And then over a long period of time, you build this muscle. Physical muscle or spiritual muscle, like regular practice. Then it becomes spiritual. If it's a spiritual practice, it's a genuine practice. And then if there's a shelter, then you can stay there. You experience life in that position. That's the notion, and that's what works. Now I'm going to go to, yesterday we handed out copies of Bhagavad Gita, and that's sometimes described as undergraduate study. Spiritual Science 101. And then there's 201 for the graduate study. And then this one, Srimad Bhagavatam. And within Srimad Bhagavatam, particular passage, just as Bhagavad Gita is spoken by Krishna to his dear friend Arjuna. They were as if friends, of course. Anyway, it's a relationship, a loving relationship of friendship. And Arjuna becomes bewildered by circumstance. He turns to his friend Krishna and says, "This friendship thing, that's nice, but I need some guidance, please. So please instruct me. What should I do? And how should I do it?" So then the dynamic changes and Krishna speaks as an instructor or a teacher or a guru to his student or disciple, Arjuna. That's Bhagavad Gita, the context. And